hear the clicking of the dominoes. You're shaking up a game. And if we lose a hand, I bet I'll know just who's to blame. But if we hit 21, if we make that call, I bet I sit here in my chair just feeling 10 feet tall. And we're caught up in the riffraff, circling around the sun. It takes a whole lot of blood and tears just to really love someone. But when it comes back around, that's heaven on earth. You never know till the end, my friend, what your love is really worth. Are you cracking jokes with the common folks? Are you serving to the well-to-do? I've traveled around and I ain't found nobody quite like you. And is all this living meant to be, or a happy accident? Well, in my heart you pay no rent. Well, in my heart you pay no rent.
Okay, that's the Turnpike Troubadours, Pay No Rent. Give you an update on football scores from last week. Purcell Dragons dropped the game to Pauls Valley Panthers 21-14. Mighty Lindsay Leopards lose to Washington Warriors 35-0, and the sad OU Sooners lose to Missouri 30-23. Okay, we had a big weekend here at the Simonton Family Garage. We had Misty and Eric up here, Dalen, Cody, Glenn, Tracy, Turner was up here, Kyle and Amy Barton was up here, and my famous wife, Kara, was up here. She was kind of the hostess and the cook, and we had a great time, and the reason this podcast is running probably a day or day and a half short because had such a big weekend, and we were kind of recuperated yesterday a little bit. I'm solo today. Miss Kara's working late tonight at, I think it's a basketball game at Purcell, working concessions, so I'm here by myself in the garage, me and trusty dog Sadie. I'm going to try to do a solo podcast, and what I'm going to do is just kind of give people that don't know me real well, or maybe if they do know me well, that they don't know what my childhood and preteen ages and teenage age encompassed. I'm going to give you guys a little background on that, just kind of give you an idea of my life and what some of the major events that happened in my life. Hopefully give you a better understanding of my life's been all about. I was born on April 24th, 1956 in Pauls Valley, Oklahoma. Mom was, she's a pretty small lady. At the very tallest was 5'1", maybe 120 pounds. Anyway, she gave birth to me naturally. I weighed 11 pounds, 4 ounces. Huge baby, and I want to apologize to Mom for that. Sorry about that, Mom. Some of the earliest childhood memories I have are when Dad and Mom moved to Michigan, and I think it was 1959 or 60. I was between 4 and 5 years old. Dad was following the drilling rigs up there, and we went up to Michigan, near Jonesville, Moserville, Michigan. They was going to drill some wells. He's working with Keating Drilling back then. And one of my first memories ever was, like I said, I was 4 or 5 years old. Brother Steve was 2 years old at the time, and Dad had built us a tree house, probably 150 yards from where our trailer house was. It was probably 8 or 10 foot up in the air, and it was a nice tree house, and all it had was some wooden 2x4s nailed to the tree as the rungs as a ladder. I was wanting to go up there. I had Brother Steve with me, and Steve couldn't climb it. He wasn't quite strong enough to climb the rungs. So I got back down. I told him, "You just crawl on my back. You hold on, and I'll climb the rung." Well, we got almost to the top, and I had to kind of reach in to enter the tree house. Well, the weight of him on my back pulled me off, and we fell 8 foot and backwards, and I fell, and he kind of flew behind me and kind of rolled back, and I hit the back of my head on a dadgum rock, and I think it knocked me out for a little bit. And come to, and I felt back in my head, and it was all bloody. And anyway, I loaded up Steve. We walked back to the house and told Mom what I did, and she tended to my cut on the head. Then I got a spanking. So needless to say, I didn't ever get Brother Steve up in the tree house. I'd just climb by myself and leave him at the house. Well, a few days later, I think you'll kind of see a pattern of behavior for me and some of my accidents. Brother Danny, older brother Danny, and Mike Rossman, he was our friend up there, and he was Danny's age. And our neighbor, that was the son of our landlord. We had our trailer house parked on the. He had a dairy farm with some extra land, so we got to park on it. And anyway, we got to be friends with him, and they's going to go to a summer baseball game, and we was riding our bikes. Told Mom was riding our bikes, and like I said, I'm 5 years old riding a bike. It's about a mile and a half to Mosierville where we was going, and about a half a mile down there's a pretty good curve on the road, and well, I didn't make the curve like I needed to. Slid off in the gravel and wrecked, and Danny and Mike was in front of me, and they saw me, and they turned around, and I had a big gash in my head. I was crying and bleeding, and they kind of looked me over. They said, "Okay, you just ride your bicycle back to the house. We got to go to the ball game." So they left me there. My bike was I wasn't able to ride the bike. There's some damage to the wheel or something, and I'm walking back, and face is all bloody. And there's a lady, I remember, she drove by, and she was in a little station wagon car. She had a couple of kids with her. She stopped and picked me up and asked where I needed to go, and I was kind of, I guess, in shock or something. I wouldn't talk to her, but all I can remember just pointing to where the house was, and she pulled up and let me out and told Mom that she found me at the curve walking back home, and she said my bicycle was down in the ditch, needed to probably go pick it up. And I had like I said, a bloody face and skin up arms and stuff, and she thanked the lady for dumping me off, and we promptly loaded up and got my bicycle, and we drove to town, and Mom, she called Mike and Danny over there, and they got their ass in trouble, and this time Danny got a spanking. So that was another adventure, and like I said, I was about 5 years old, and I'd always wake up earlier than anyone in the house, and at the time I didn't know I'd probably had ADHD or something like that. I just didn't sleep well, and I was always getting up and doing things, and I was able to memorize Rossman's telephone number. I'd wake up like 4:30, 5 o'clock and just go call that number, and I just let it ring till Lena'd answer, and she'd talk to me a little bit, and this goes on every morning for several days in a row. And finally, she got fed up with it, and she taught me how to cuss that day. She went to cussing over that phone and told me never ever call her that early in the morning. And oh my God, anyway, that was a little story. And we were going to started school. I was in kindergarten. This Mosierville, Michigan. That school building was built in 1862. And I didn't know at the time that was the oldest school building in the state of Michigan, and it still is. It's a historic building now. Anyway, one of the rooms was kindergarten, first and second. The other part of the two-room building was third, fourth, and fifth. So Mrs. Marble was my teacher, and one of my earliest memories of school was basically going outside on recess, and they had a game called tetherball, was basically a rope attached to a pole, and the goal was to hit the ball in your direction and wrap it up before the other person hits the ball in the other direction. I was 5 years old, and I was playing against a guy. Anyway, my turn comes up to play, and like I said, I was 4 years old, and I don't know how old that other guy was. I think he's fourth or fifth grade, and he gets that thing up there, and he hits that thing, and before I knew it, I had no idea where the ball was going, and it come around and whacked me in the back of the head, that tether ball, and knocked me over. I screw this, I ain't playing that more. 2 or 3 stories of Michigan that I remember as a childhood. We stayed in Michigan about 2 years when Mom and Dad decided to move to Lindsay, Oklahoma. I'm not positive why they chose Lindsay, but I'm pretty sure it's because of the oil industry that was around the Lindsay area, and could have been where the car broke down for all I know. Anyway, I was enrolled in the first grade, and Mrs. Sims was the first grade teacher. And my memory of first grade was that we took a small mat to school for the purpose of short nap around the noon hour, and I was not very good at lying still, much less taking a nap. Most everyone is pretty good at this. Well, like I said, I wasn't. And one day I was laying on my stomach and pestering someone else that's trying to take a nap. And little I'd know that Mrs. Sims, she'd snuck up behind me with a paddle in the hand, and man, she came down on my rear and smacked. And that's when Rossman's teaching me to cuss kicked in. It startled me for a second or two. Miss Sims, she heard me cussing. She got her composure back, gave me a few more licks. I learned then you're not supposed to cuss your teacher. Okay, I'm going to jump up to 3rd grade. Mrs. Lacey was my teacher. I remember this date pretty much like it was yesterday, November 22nd, 1963. Just got back from being outside in recess, come back in, and I noticed Mrs. Lacey she was really somber, quiet, and almost looked like she had tears in her eyes to me, and it actually was. Everybody got seated. She stood up and said that President Kennedy had been assassinated in the Dallas area, and had a quiet, somber moments. In those days, normally when you got to class, first thing in the morning, you'd do the Pledge of Allegiance, then we'd have a prayer. So it was quite a bit different than it is now. And all I knew is that our president had been shot, and we had it's called the Cold War going on with Russia at about the same time, and my first thought was Russia may have had something to do with it, and while I was in school would have alarms, and would do our fallout shelter, where basically you'd run to the basement and sit there or get on your desk. If the sirens are going off, they'd had TV alerts, telling you in case it's actual emergency what you need to do. So it was a kind of a trying time for me, being a 3rd grader and trying to figure out what in the world's going on. I had no idea what the Iron Curtain was. I just thought it was a giant iron curtain that Russia's building somewhere, and they were the bad guys, and I wasn't sure if they didn't have anything to do with our president getting shot. So it was really emotional for me to be at that age, trying to figure out what in the world's going on in the world. But anyway, we got past that and move on to the 6th grade. Okay, here we are in the 6th grade. It's lunch hour, recess, and we're outside, and we're playing football on the playground. And one of my schoolmates, Jeff Bates, we played full tackle football, and he made a good tackle on me, and I can tell by his smile and his demeanor he liked the tackle. And nowadays they call that taunting. Jeff, he was bigger than me, but that didn't stop me from jumping up and telling him off. And I could tell by his demeanor that this was not going to end well. So next thing you know, the fight was on, and he was thrashing me pretty good. And I don't know, suddenly I got a right jab directly on his nose. I mean, his nose started bleeding, his eyes watering. He conceded I'd won that fight that day, and I was sure glad that thing was over. So let's jump up to 7th grade, and back then was when you moved from one building on the south side of the school to the north building. The 6th grade and less was on one side, 7th grade and through 12 was on the the North Building, and Mr. Bunch was one of the teachers I remember the best. He's our seventh grade history teacher, and I was always in trouble with him, and he'd get on to me, and next thing you know, he'd have me writing 3,000-word themes for being disobedient in class. And anyway, I had Mr. Bunce's class, the first class right after lunch. We used to go to the place called the Shack, which is just a little building next to the school. You can run over there and get basically fast food stuff. And one of my favorites was the Frito chili pie, where they just take a bag of Fritos, cut the side on, pour chili in it, and get a small Coke and a candy bar. I think is 50 cents, something like that, for the whole package deal. Anyway, I always had chiclet chewing gum, and one of my buddies that was in class, in the history class, he's always coming to, hey, I want some chiclets. Hey, I want some chiclets. And I said, God dang, Jerry, go buy your own. Well, I don't have the money, and you got some extra money about them chiclets. Well, I said, okay, I'll fix you. So I went to, next day we went to Rexall drugstore, and they had it's a kind of a chewing tablet called Phenamint. And Phenamint was a chewable laxative. And anyway, I bought a package of them, and I bought a package of chiclets. So now I was ready for Jerry that next day, and right before we go to the Shack, I get over by myself, and I put about 6 Phenamint in the front part of that chiclet packet. Sure enough, we got through eating, and Jerry wanted the chiclets. I said, okay, hell, take about 5 or 6 of them, and then you don't have to keep asking me. And he took, I know 5 or 6 of them. He chewed them, and then he got to the chocolate flavor. He said, these don't taste like chiclets. I said, yeah, they're chiclets. They're chiclet. Then I gave him a couple of real chiclets. I said, here, chew these. Something may have been wrong with them others. But anyway, he eats those 5 or 6 chiclets, and we go to Mr. Bunch's history class next door, and I'm sitting in the back, and Jerry's kind of in the front. And back then, you raise one finger up with your arm, and that means you had to do number 1 business. And if you hold up number 2 finger, that means you had to go to the bathroom, do the number 2 business. Jerry holds up number 1. Mr. Bunch said, no, sit down, Jerry. Class will be over a little bit. And then Jerry held up 1 again. He said, no, sit down. Then Jerry held up number 2. Mr. Bunch said, Jerry, sit down. I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to get out of class. And number 2, Jerry just jumped up, and he ran out of the class, and he went to the bathroom. I never saw him till the next day. I said, where'd you go, Jerry? He said, I don't know what happened, where I got some bad chili or something, but he said, I was on the toilet all night long. My stomach was tearing me up. He said, I don't know what it was, and I never told him. And this has been, this has been 55 years ago, and to this day, he doesn't know I did that. So I want to kind of apologize, Jerry, if you're out there and hear that. And I did kind of take care of you that day, but he never got any more chiclets or Phenamint gum from me. Okay, I've been on here a little bit and started to tell you I got that's the end of the 7th grade, and I want to cut it off here, and next podcast or two I'll start in the 10th grade, continue on there from telling you some events that happened in my life that stand out, and continue on to past high school and moving forward, and kind of tell you what happened after that. So I hope you enjoyed part of it, and we'll regroup and try it again next week or so. Thanks again. Goodbye.